you. Do you like the merch? Anybody who wants an Eden t-shirt, let me know. Yeah. Well, I was really glad that Carl chose those songs this morning. It was inspired, actually. It was exactly what I was trying to get across. Christianity is things we believe, and it's not a, you would say, unqualified thing, but it's faith that we believe, and that's what we celebrate here today. So today I wanted to give basically a summary of what we do believe, because I think it's actually quite difficult for us sometimes to explain what we believe to our friends. And I'm hoping that today I can just maybe give you some more things to share if anybody wants to know. On my way to work every Thursday, I stop and buy some avocados from a guy at the Otahuhu market. And he's a Hare Krishna fella named Yuga. And over the last year or so, every Thursday, when I buy my avocados, he knows I'm a Christian, and he's waiting for me. He wants to talk about Christianity and God. So I've got to allow a good 5 or 10 minutes extra on my way to work every Thursday, because basically no sooner do I get to the stall than he launches into some question about Jesus. And it's nice. I think he realizes I'm not argumentative, I'm not preachy, and I'm a safe person to talk about. So I just wanted to share how can we talk about our faith in a way that is intriguing and invites conversation. And I thought this passage is actually really getting to the heart of what we believe, what the message of Christianity is, as Joy read it out. Now, the Bible makes a couple of assumptions that you have to sort of understand when you read the Bible. And the first assumption is that there is a God. Now, Benjamin, can you bring up the first slide that I have? By the way, big shout out to Benjamin, who's running the AV today. Yes. Oh, yeah. Another Crawford off the bench. And so good. Yeah. Appreciate that, Benjamin, so much. So I want to say the first assumption that we make is that there is a God. And it's easy for Kiwis to say, I only believe in stuff I can see and touch and taste. I don't believe in anything that I can't see. And yet there's so much that we don't understand in this world. And all I'm saying is, speaking to you Kiwis, if you could entertain the fact that possibly there is a mind behind this amazing creation, DNA, the more you study DNA, you realize it's the greatest software code that was ever written. And this space capsule that we live on, this Earth that's rocketing through space, it's just perfect. Now, here's a photo that Shirley took the other day in our walk through Corn Park. And, you've just got to stop and think for a minute. Look at the beauty of this creation, and look at the dog that we're walking, and think about your life, and think about where did you come from. And it's not a big stretch to think, I think there's something more. We're not just a bunch of chemicals randomly that happened. And this earth, it's an incredible fluke. And to say that is just such an understatement. Really, there had to be a mind behind all this. So yeah, Corn Park these days is a great photography place. So the other assumption that the Bible makes is that there is a heaven, there's a spiritual realm all around us. It's not outrageous. I think most of us inside would like to feel that there's more to life. There's something after we die. We've all got this spiritual side of us inside. So the other assumption that the Bible makes is that something is broken. Something has gone wrong, and there's a gap between us and God. We never quite managed to live up to what we'd hope, and we see so often people going down a dark hole, and something is broken inside us. So that's an assumption the Bible makes. Now, Christianity's central message is that a person called Jesus Christ came to earth from the heavenly realm, and in the 1st century AD was in fact a man who was a carpenter, but he was God become a human. Now at this point, the average Kiwi goes, whoa, this is getting weird. What's this talk about God becoming a man? And, what's this? You're saying that there's God who's 3 beings, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But if we can just remember that, our first assumption, there is a power, there is so much likelihood that there's a creator of this universe. So it's not an unreasonable thing to think that he could come to earth as a person. Now, one of my favourite authors, C.S. Lewis, and one of his best quotes that I like is from Mere Christianity. He says, reality, in fact, is usually something you wouldn't have guessed. That's one of the reasons I believe Christianity. It's not the sort of thing anyone would have made up. It's just got that queer twist about it that real things have. And I like that a lot. It's a queer twist that God became man and that there's 3 beings who are God. And again, he says in Mere Christianity, wait a minute. Here we go. Yep. Oh, back, sorry. Yep. If Christianity was something we were making up, of course we could have made it easier, but it's not. We cannot compete in simplicity with people who are inventing religions. How could we? We're dealing with fact. Of course, anyone can be simple if he has no facts to bother about. And I like that a lot. I mean, when I went to Stage 1 university physics, and they started to tell me that this piece of wood is not solid. I am not actually touching anything solid. I'm actually nanometers off the surface, and that this what I thought was a solid is actually full of holes and it's interconnected. And then I don't understand the theory of relativity. I don't understand how time can slow down the faster you go, but I'm happy to use a GPS and I'm happy to use Google Maps. And all of us are the same. We live in a queer, unusual, fascinating world. And why shouldn't it be? Why shouldn't it be that the explanation of reality, which is Christianity, is mind-boggling and confusing? And that's just life. And if someone tries to sell you a simple theory of life, it's probably not the reality. So let's get down to what is Christianity all about. Well, Christianity, it's not just a system of things you do. It's not a list of rules or a list of things you believe to get to heaven. It's first and foremost an announcement that we're in a mess. God has taken the initiative to enter this mess and rescue us, and there is nothing we can do about it. It's all about what God has done through Jesus Christ. One way to think of it that I quite like, if talking to the average Kiwi, you remember the Lord of the Rings. We all love Lord of the Rings in New Zealand. Well, we're born into a giant drama that is a little bit like Lord of the Rings. Most Kiwis, I would say, are a little bit like Frodo or Bilbo, happy in their hobbit hole, they've got their garden, they go to the pub and have their ale and their nice food, and they live in the Shire. They don't want to know about what's happening out there. They are just happy in their hobbit life. Suddenly, Gandalf appears and says, "You are part of a giant drama. There is a horrendous battle going on between the forces of good and evil, and I want you to get involved. And there is way more outside the Shire than you realize." And so Frodo and Bilbo say yes to Gandalf, and they go off. And that's what Christianity is saying to us. Life is a giant drama that you're born into. It stretches back to the start of history. It covers the whole universe. There are forces of good and evil. You are caught up in it. And it is way bigger than you thought. So that's kind of what Christianity is saying to us. Now, we've got this issue that we're trapped. So that's why I wanted to look at this Hebrew passage again in Hebrews 4. Let's see, yep. It says, "We've got a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God. So let's hold firmly to the faith we profess. We don't have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who's been tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin." So the first half of the Bible is a multi-thousand-year story of priests and sacrifices and laws, all hinting at these spiritual realities and all hinting at what God was going to do. And when they talk about a high priest, the high priest was a picture of what Jesus is going to do and represent us before God. So keep with me and I'll keep explaining more in this drama. So this perfect person, Jesus Christ, was God incognito. He lived a life of total love for people and total love for God. And he gave unparalleled teachings on how to live. He gave beautiful guides on how to make the most of life. All well and nice. Jesus came, lived a perfect life, showed us how to live. But the crunch thing in this drama is that perfect life doesn't help us much. It's actually quite depressing because we don't live up to that. We're still separated from God. And that's where it gets interesting. This God-man, this Jesus Christ, he had to create a link between us and God. And to create that link, he had to die. He had to have his soul physically wrenched from his body by death so that that connection could be made with us all. Now stay with me. This is where it gets deep. So not only did Jesus have to die, he had to experience all the shame and horror and despair of corruption and evil in himself. Why? Well, I can hardly explain it. I think it's too deep for words. But the Bible does make quite a few attempts at explaining it with analogies. The Bible says all our corruption was somehow transferred onto Jesus. Jesus experienced the horror and the shame and hopelessness we experience when we really stuff up. It uses a legal analogy that when Jesus died, he took the rap for all our crimes. All charges against us were wiped because he took the charges against us. He, in turn, gave us his perfect, spotless record. All charges against us were dropped. Or another analogy from the Bible. We were prisoners. We were tricked by a devious, evil power into following a rebellion against God. And when Jesus entered our humanity, he was a rescuer. He died in the process of rescuing us, but he came into our jail, opened our eyes, broke us out of the stupor that we were in, smashed open the jail, and set us free at the cost of his own life. Or, these analogies are all, there's multiple ways that the Bible tries to explain what happened. It's a spiritually deep reality. Well, I can give a human example, actually. I worked with a young lady whose grandfather was one of the children rescued by Sir Nicholas Winton in 1938 from the Nazis. Now, the Nazis were about to invade Czechoslovakia, and Nicholas Winton was a British man working in Czechoslovakia, and he knew that as soon as the Nazis invaded, all the Jewish children would be killed. So he threw himself into tirelessly working to arrange the visas and the finance and all the administration, and he got 669 children onto a train out of Czechoslovakia called the Kinder train. And Nicholas Winton, in a small way, he did what Jesus did. We're like those doomed children, and Jesus Christ entered into our situation, gave us his visa, gave us all the paperwork to be able to flee to God's country. And he rescued us. These are all analogies that in some small way try to contain the essence of what Jesus did on the cross. And in that agony that he on the cross, we refer to that in chapter 5, verse 7, when it says, during the days of Jesus' life on earth, he offered up prayers and petitions with fervent cries and tears to the one who could save him from death. The Gospels record that before Jesus died, he was pleading with God. Was there some way to avoid this horror? He knew when he was going to experience that shame, that crushing hopelessness of evil on him, he was in agony just thinking about it, and he was actually sweating tears. So the Gospels affirm that Jesus suffered intense psychological terror, and he experienced all the horror of evil for our sake. But it doesn't stop there. The drama has more twists and turns. Jesus Christ came back to life. The Spirit of God came into his corpse, and he was brought back to life again. Jesus Christ, the God who could not die, experienced the trauma of bodily death, where his soul was wrenched out of his body, but then the Spirit of God came back into that corpse, and he was raised to life. I told you that this is all deep and strange, but remember what C.S. Lewis said, real things are always complicated and strange. So now we can receive the Spirit of God into our hearts. The Bible tries to explain that as well, as being born again, new creations, getting the Spirit of Christ. We experience a divine nature. Or, for a modern take, I suggest we could download the Spirit of God into our hearts when we click on the link of faith and we authenticate by believing that he loves us. Or another analogy I can suggest, we receive the DNA of God into our lives, and we get a new DNA alongside our old DNA. We get the DNA of Jesus, who is unaffected by sin, and he's never known the harm that sin causes. That comes into our life and slowly starts to change us. So this is the Spirit of God. Suddenly we are connected, we are reconnected to the Spirit of the universe. So we have a choice. Christianity gives us this choice, just as when Gandalf came into Bilbo's hobbit hole. Take that ring, follow me, and your life will become this huge adventure. Or you can go back to life in the Shire, like many of the hobbits, and say, bah humbug, I don't believe it. But if you do feel a nagging wish that there was more, and maybe life is more and bigger than just getting by, then the Christian message is a compelling place to start. As Tolkien said, the Christian myth has not ceased to be a myth. It is a myth working on us in the same way as the others, but with the tremendous difference that it really happened. So there we have it. Christianity is a story about a man who was so good. Jesus Christ was so compelling, so brave, so insightful, he changed the course of history. So we can be glad. We have been rescued. That's the choice Christianity offers us. And you might think I'm crazy, but I'm here to say I took that risk. I investigated it. I took that step of faith and I found it was true. It's all true. The DNA of God has come into my life and started to change me. It's the greatest story that's ever been told. And it's true. So be willing to take that step of faith.
I'm not forsaken, never alone. The God of heaven calls me his own. He's not just seated upon the throne. I know he's right here inside my home. I've got a treasure here in my heart, and in my weakness it won't depart. I have a Savior who will abide. He's not just with me, he lives inside. Just go as Daniel lives, our God will bring you out, and he will testify. He shuts the lion's mouth. Go ask those Hebrew boys if he'll stick by your side. They will identify the fourth man in the fire. They'll tell you, oh,